December 3rd, yesterday, was the International Day of Disabled Persons, proclaimed by the United Nations in 1992, aims to promote an understanding of disability issues, mobilize support for the dignity, the rights, the well-being of those with disabilities, day in and day out. Now, looking locally, per their website, the Beit Shapiro, it's Israel's leading developer and provider of innovative therapies and state-of-the-art services for children and adults across the entire range of disabilities, impacting over 500,000 people in Israel here. So along those lines, we're joined by Michael Lawrence, the Chief Advancement Officer for Beit Shapiro. They're based in Ra'anana, not far from here. So thanks for being with us. First
Pleasure
of all,
to be here, David.
Upon this, this International Day here, tell us about your organization. I mean, you're working across all sectors of Israeli society. It sounds like a busy operation.
Yes, 100%. And it's great to be here the day after this very important day, marking 30 years since the declaration by the UN. And Beit Issie itself, Beit Shapiro, now 42 years old, does work across the whole gamut of disabilities, physical, intellectual, cognitive. Began those 42 years ago by this man, Issie Shapiro, who saw a gap in Israel. Wow. And he saw that when a child is born with severe or complex disabilities, there was no real answer for a child at that time in the early 80s, late 70s. And he wanted to create a structure whereby children with disabilities can still learn, can still grow. He believed in them, but he believed also in helping the families and providing all the therapies and services under one roof. So yes, we work very strongly with early childhood. We are leaders there in intervention, but we also work with school-age children, and we work with young adults, and we have people coming in for hydrotherapy and dental services and so on, specifically catered for people with disabilities, right up to people in their 90s. So a very wide range.
It's a long range of a lifetime of dealing with these issues. It's remarkable that this organization is there. You touched on a couple, sort of milestones. Of 42 years, I think you said, of this organization, seeing the gap in Israel. As I suspect, I mean, where does Israel rank in dealing with these issues? I believe, and maybe you correct me, that in some ways we're behind places like Europe or the United States. It feels like there's still a gap here to be made up in terms of, the way the public is structured, or how the country, it's a young country, but how do you see Israel in terms of grappling with this in these 40 years?
So it's an interesting question, because in fact what we've seen as we travel the world is that in terms of services, in terms of innovation, Beit Issie and the general space of disabilities in Israel is somewhat doing okay. We're seeing advancement. We're seeing actually, in fact, ahead of some other countries that we see, specifically around innovation and the kind of services that people and their families need. One thing that we have to keep on working on is to make sure that that's really ingrained into Israeli society, that inclusion, that the involvement and participation of people with disabilities becomes something that is the norm. And that's why Beit Issie works a lot with the Knesset and with all governments to make sure that that is ingrained within regulations and within laws. And we've been involved in about the 15 laws, the drafting and the changing of laws, to ensure that it's not just something that happens, but it's something that people understand should happen and becomes part of our daily life.
So, yeah, so important. I mean, this touches on so many, families around the country. The international side, though, so 30 years now, this being an internationally recognized day, I mean, has there been sort of measurable impact since the UN, took this up some 30 years ago? I have to imagine that's only led to positive developments for the world over for this issue.
100%, and things are advancing. But it's interesting, the WHO, the World Health Organization, just came out in honor of yesterday's International Day for People with Disabilities, just came out with some really interesting statistics. The big one there is that there's about 1.6 billion people worldwide with significant disabilities. It's a huge number, which means that millions of families are affected by having a loved one who either is born with a significant disability or comes later in life through accident and illness and so on. So this is a major global issue, and that's part of what Beit Issie Shapiro works on, is global change. The idea that we're not only trying to make change in Israel, but we're very focused on taking our training and our expertise from Israel, from Ra'anana, straight out to the rest of the world. And we're working with universities like Florida International University, very closely with Harvard. We're working in China. Just this month, we led the first hydrotherapy training for people in Ghana, in Africa, and we're doing next month in Toronto in Canada. So we're very global, a significant organization in Israel, but we believe very much in reaching people around the world who need our help and our innovation.
It's such a wonderful mission. Wish you continued success with it, and hope a little bit of exposure on our program here can only help the organization and the holy mission that you're a part of here at Beit, Issie Shapiro. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it.